Congressman Don Bacon of the great state of Nebraska. Good morning, Congressman. Good to have you.
Good morning. It's an honor to be on with you. I love reading your stuff, and I love what you stand for.
Okay, well, let me begin with an easy question then. When is Nebraska going to reinstitute college football? I'm just wondering if they're ever going to come back and have a football program there.
Well, we would like to have had that done like 5 years ago. We have a great coach. I think he's really brought us some great talent this year. So hopefully we'll keep making great progress year by year. But I think our coach is going to turn things around. But we're doing great in volleyball, baseball, and basketball right now. We just got to get it done in football.
I just like to always get my Nebraska friends and gig them a bit. Now, Congressman, you are a general. You are actually General Don Bacon, Air Force General retired. And I want to talk to you about the Quality of Life Act. And I want to give you the background. I'm a civilian. I don't speak much military, but my wife's Marine Corps brat. I've got a son, a son-in-law, and a nephew on active duty. They're all officers, so they don't really have to live as an E1 does. But what shocked my wife more than anything is when she visited our daughter. They were stationed in Japan, and they had food stamp aisles in the base in Japan because our enlisted men and women can't afford food. What in the world is going on?
Well, it's terrible, Hugh. It's disgraceful. So a year and a half ago, I went to Mike Rogers. He was the ranking member at the time, now our chairman. And I laid out this problem. About 1 in 8 of our enlisted people are on SNAP, or they're having to go to food banks. And that, for the strongest military in the world, that's disgraceful. And so he made it his priority this year to fix. But while we're digging into it, we learned that it wasn't just pay that's an issue. We were subtracting 5% from their housing allowance. The spouses were the largest demographic for being unemployed. The military, all the services cut the money going to barracks and the dormitories. So the GAO gave them a failing grade this past year. So as we looked around, we were failing in the quality of life for our servicemen and women, those who are defending our country, the greatest country in the world. And we know that we had to do better. So we put together a temporary subcommittee, an ad hoc subcommittee. It was going to last about a year. And our whole goal was to say, what do we need to do to fix quality of life? We have an all-volunteer military. It's served us well. But if we don't fix this, our all-volunteer military is going to fail. So we put together 35 recommendations. I'm very proud of the work that we did, a very bipartisan report, and we're going to execute it this year.
Well, tell me, I got to ask you one specific. The BHA, Basic Housing Allowance, is nuts. It doesn't even begin to cover what these kids have. And I say kids, they're 18 to 22-year-old. They can't live in California near Camp Pendleton on this amount of money. They can't live near Washington, D.C. on this amount of money. Did you guys address the BHA for enlisted people?
Yeah, we did in multiple ways. You're right. 40% of the people that get housing allowance to live off base are being underpaid, particularly like Washington, D.C., San Diego, the high-cost areas. What the military was doing was they were looking at the entire city and trying to figure out what would be the average housing needed. However, most of our military members want to have their kids go to better schools, so they were more selective. So they were living in areas that were significantly more expensive than what the housing allowance was allowing because they wanted safety. They wanted a good education for their kids. And this contributed to many of them going on SNAP or having to go to food banks. And so we made some changes to the housing allowance. We made it more transparent. We have we were subtracting 5% from everybody's housing allowance. We were using that 5% to go to weapons. That's not right either. We were buying weapons on the backs of our enlisted men and women. So we restored 100% of everyone's housing allowance in these recommendations. So we did address this issue, and it's a good point.
Now, I have continually made the argument to young people that the best decision they can make coming out of high school is to do a tour in the military for a lot of reasons. J.D. Vance will also explain them all in his book, Hillbilly Elegy. The military teaches a lot of kids a lot of things, but they can't go in if their entering salary is, $24,000? I don't know how anyone lives on that, Congressman. So what do you want to raise it to?
We're going to do a 15% pay raise for E1 through E4. And that gets all of these young folks above the SNAP threshold. And then we're going to restore 5% of their housing allowance. And we're going to relook at how we do the basic subsistence for food. And we're going to relook how we compute the housing allowance as well. You put all this together, it should have a significant impact on all of our junior enlisted people. And then we're going to address the dormitories, the barracks. We want to help out our spouses be able to get employment easier, working with the chambers of commerce. We also have problems with our medical care. People are waiting 2 months to get like specialized care, and that's not right either. So we have a lot of different things we're digging into.
And when does this bill get introduced, Congressman? I want to talk to you after the break about what we passed over the weekend, but when does the bill that you're working on actually get a vote or get processed?
We're going to put all of this in the National Defense Authorization Act. So we're going to put it in into a bill format in June or July timeframe. Then we'll vote on it in the House around September or October. And then we got to work with the Senate to get matching language. So it'll be done this year.
Congressman, over the weekend, the House National Security Supplemental passed. First of all, there were 4 pieces of it. How did you vote on each of those pieces?
I was a yes on all 4. I think it's in our national security interest to defend Ukraine and have an independent Ukraine. Israel's our closest ally in the Middle East, and we need to deter China with Taiwan. And so I'm one of the folks who worked behind the scenes for months to make this possible. And I'm very grateful to Speaker Johnson for having the courage to get it done.
So what happens now in the caucus? Because if the knucklehead caucus comes together and throws out Mike Johnson, I really despair of holding the House in the fall.
Yeah, they're in a dysfunction and anarchy, no doubt. They're a minority, a group that want to see Speaker Johnson go, just like with Kevin McCarthy. I believe there's maybe between 3 to 5 that are this way. I'm not sure what the total number is, but we only have a majority of 2. I suspect because the Democrats don't want to see, many of the Democrats don't want to see this dysfunction either, that they'll be able to table the motion to vacate the chair. So in other words, all we need is about 5 to 10 Democrats not to vote, and this thing will go away. But we'll see how it progresses. It would be terrible for the institution, terrible for the Republican Party, for these knuckleheads, as you call them, to try to vacate the chair and kick out Speaker Johnson.
Now, Congressman, you're a general, so you've been around some serious people for a long time. Do you ever try and talk sense to these folks? Are they just stupid?
Well, 95% of us are together on this. It was 215 roughly, or 214 of the 222 supported Kevin McCarthy. 8 of them voted with all the Democrats to remove him. Now we're looking at 3, 4, 5. I'm not sure what the number is. 3 that are officially wanting to remove Speaker Johnson. This is more about cable TV getting social media hits. It's about getting attention. It's not about being part of a team. Teams win. Ronald Reagan talked about, if your friend agrees with you 80% of the time, he is your friend, not your enemy. And these folks are in the 99% or 100%, some kind of a purity test that they have out there. And we could do so much more together as a team. What's interesting is they oppose Speaker Johnson majority frequently, which forces the speaker then to do suspension votes, we call it, which makes them more bipartisan, which really forces the speaker to work more with Democrats. So it has the actual opposite effect of what they want. And I don't know why they can't see it. They're strengthening or giving more leverage to the Democrat Party by what they're doing and how they're doing it.
But what I get at is either they have a plan or they're dumb as a desk. If they have a plan, I don't know what it is, and maybe you can enlighten me on that, or are they dumb as a desk? You tell me. I know you don't want to use any names specifically, but none of these people are going to win the spelling bee. I just don't understand. Do they not know math?
They didn't have a plan in October, and we went 3 weeks trying to get a speaker, and they acknowledged they have nobody identified to replace Speaker Johnson. And so this is more about getting attention. They love the spotlight. They live in an echo chamber with a small segment of our party where they live, and it's not representative of the vast majority of the Republican Party, let alone America. So, they do not have a plan.
All right. So, Congressman, I want to wrap up here. I've got a piece in the edit process at the Washington Post, and I don't want to tip too much, but it's about who former President Trump ought to pick as his vice president. How many people do you think, what percentage of people would care if it's a veteran or not? One of the considerations I'm mulling over is we haven't had a veteran in a long time in the White House or as vice president. And I'm just curious whether or not you think there are enough people who would care about that it would shift even a handful of votes in some states.
You know, the favorability of the military, though it's gone down somewhat over the last 5 years, is still the most respected institution in America. I think veterans, you know, we try to do what's right for our country. We try to look beyond the partisan politics by and large. I think it would be helpful. You know, Mike Pence made a huge difference on the ticket in 2016. A lot of the traditional Republicans were wavering, and when Mike Pence came on, they all came on board President Trump. I think it's so important that he get a great vice president to consolidate the party, because we cannot afford 4 more years of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I mean, it's been terrible on the economy, terrible for our national security, and I can just go on and on. So it's very important to get the right vice president. I think a veteran would be very helpful.
Okay, last question. Nebraska has the funny system that Maine has where you vote by congressional district. And I saw that a bill was moving through the Cornhusker state that would change that. Did that die or is that still alive?
It's still alive. It's 1 vote shy. We have 49 state senators. It takes 33 to pass this. They're at 32. So they could call back a special session if we get 1 more vote on that. And, you know, what it does is, you know, we have 48 states go winner take all. Nebraska is a 60-40 Republican state, though the district I'm in is 50-50. And it gives the Democrats the chance to get 1 more electoral college vote. And it would be one thing if Illinois or New York or California did what we did, but they don't. And so if every state did what we did, it would make sense. It doesn't make sense when you're just 1 of 2 out of 50.
Are you optimistic about flipping 1 more vote?
You know, I would give it about 50-50. I've talked to some of the folks on the fence. I think it's possible. I don't know that it's likely. But I think the governor is very involved in this, and governors can be influential when they get one-on-one and talk to those who are wavering. So it's not done yet, but we don't have it in the bank.
I've studied the math. That 1 vote could be everything come the fall. Congressman Don Bacon, thank you for joining me. Thank you for your votes this weekend. And thank you for taking care of our enlisted men and women, because, boy, nobody thinks about them. And without them, we do not have a military. And I appreciate your putting them front and center. And good luck on this bill.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.